So good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Welcome to an executive member decision for the environment and climate emergency today, Tuesday, 29th of April. It's very good to see you all here. Could I introduce James Gilchrist, Ian Holt and Dave Mee from Public Realm and Environmental Services, who are going to be leading the report, and could also welcome public speakers here today and councillors. First of all, can I ask if anyone has any declarations of interest? No. Secondly, I need to approve the minutes of the executive decision-making session on the 18th of March of this year, which concerned the extension of a statutory controlled area for smoke emissions. I was there and I'm happy to approve them. Any comments from anybody? In which case I shall approve those. Thank you. And that brings us to public participation. We have three speakers. First is Bill Hill from Friends of the York Bar Walls, I believe. Bill, if you want to come and have a seat at the front here. Thank you. And I don't know if you've done this before, but the system is if you press the microphone button while you're speaking and you get 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Would you like a warning, 30 seconds, when you've timed it perfectly? Wonderful. Thank you. In that case, whenever you're ready.
In a local authority, and in those days, if you turned up without a tie, you were sent out again. So I'm very pleased to see that the regime here is very much more relaxed.
One tie in the room. Well done, Councillor Waller. If you just press the green button, Mr. Hill, thank you.
Okay, let me get. Thank you very much. In my days, it was Madam Chair. I don't know whether that's your time, but thank you very much for inviting me and for the opportunity to speak to your agenda this morning. My focus is to support the themes which run through your office's report, which is how we can enhance biodiversity, increase pollinators, and create a more diverse habitat. And the topic of what we've been doing is the ramparts of the walls, which I notice you call the embankments, but I'm going to use the term rampart. But it's the sloping part of the wall of the ground that supports the stone walls. First, a brief word about the Friends of York Walls. We are one of the community groups working with the council in managing a green space. Our mission as a charity is to help visitors to enjoy the city walls and the ramparts, increasing interest in them through information and educating people about them. Part of this focus is what we grow and what is growing on the ramparts. The ramparts are older than the stone walls. They stretch back 2,000 years. They're very much underappreciated, the Cinderella area, I think, of the walls. So part of our mission is to draw attention to them and to interest people in them as part of the heritage of the city walls. They are mentioned in your council's pollinator strategy as having undeveloped potential to contribute to your pollinator objectives. And we might also bear in mind that wildflowers capture more carbon than grass. So if you increase wildflowers, you're also contributing to your achieving your carbon neutral targets. The council has been kind enough to give us permission to work on a section of the ramparts. It is next to Fishgate Boston Tower over the road from Wetherspoons. So it's that area there, which Dave has been helpful with us on occasion. So my contribution today is to share with you briefly what we've been doing and what we have discovered and suggest ways forward. What we've been doing is undertaking trials on how we can manage the walls in a different way so that they build up their wildflower content, and that is established as a permanent legacy. In other words, a low maintenance future. The flowers we've been using are agreed with the council's ecologists. They are all UK species. They're non-invasive, but they come back each year and they are full of nectar and pollen. Our focus is on how we can achieve an increase in the plant mix and the range over the year.
30 seconds, Mr. Hill.
Say again?
So 30 seconds left. Sorry, it goes quickly.
Say again? Right. Okay, sorry, okay, right. So what we've been doing, what we've discovered so far is that the planting seed or plugs doesn't work. So what we've are resorting to is cutting the grass and removing it, and then doing that over a 5-year period so that we lower the fertility soil level in the soil. And then we're going to have a demonstration space showing you how that works. And so in brief, Madam Chair, we are in support of wildflower growing because it has many benefits to everybody concerned.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your contributions to the walls. So next we have Mr. Andrew Mortimer from Hull Road Park.
Thank you, Chair. I've been asked by David Alexander, who was the lead petitioner for Hull Road Park Beck petition, to pass on his apologies. David has an unavoidable medical appointment today. He has, however, submitted written comments for you to consider. There are 3 areas of this report I'd like to talk about. The first is the provision of larger litter bins. I welcome the introduction of larger litter bins. The report gives examples of where they are used and possible future locations. It does, however, only seem to deal with the city centre, and I would ask you to consider other locations in other parts of York. For example, there's a high concentration of takeaways at Hull Road shops. In this area, only the standard bins are provided, and these are regularly overflowing after a busy weekend. These bins are not suited to disposing of pizza boxes, etc., and this will be an ideal location for you to trial a larger bin. Secondly, I'd like to talk about urban highway verge mowing. The section about verge management, in my view, is one-sided, dealing with only the benefits of the recent changes. The trials that took place last year don't seem to have been properly assessed. For example, the end of season only cut on the central reservation of Hull Road did cause a problem because of a large volume of litter. With this being a 40-mile-an-hour road, it is dangerous for volunteer litter pickers to keep the area tidy when the grass is long and you can't see where you are standing. When the end of season cut took place, all the accumulated litter was shredded by the mowers and the area was left in a terrible state. I really hope that lessons have been learned and that such areas will have the litter removed before the grass is cut. I also note from Annex 2 that more of Hull Road is targeted for less or no mowing. If you do decide to reduce the cut on more of the central reservation, please be aware that it can cause problems for drivers who have to cross or join Hull Road. When the grass is long, it obscures visibility. As a minimum, you should commit to keeping the sight lines of the junctions cut short. And finally, I just want to talk about Hull Road Park. I am disappointed that this report does not fully address the condition of Hull Road Park, especially the Beck. It would have been helpful for those of us in the New Friends group to know more about what the council is planning. The report notes the Friends group's ambition to act as a link with the local community and also accepts, with hindsight, that the most recent changes to the Beck could have been better communicated. I agree with this, but for the Friends group to fulfil our role, we need to know what the council hopes to achieve. What is more positive, however, is the promise of a follow-up report dealing with the Parks Investment Fund. I hope that this will provide details about issues such as the deterioration of the Beck lining, which is being damaged by the uncontrolled growth of tree roots, causing concrete slabs to work loose. While the response to the petition states that the council will not reinstate the weirs, I am not at all sure what it is you want to do. It's time for the council to be very clear about the Beck project, how it's going to go forward, and for you to share with the local community your vision for the Park Beck over the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mortimer. And we have Councillor Waller, who's also talking about local public realm experience for Westfield Ward.
Thank you, Executive Member. I would emphasise in starting my comments that by speaking to them on a regular basis whilst out and about, I would like to note how dedicated the council staff delivering street level services are to providing the best service that they can. But by holding vacancies to fit the budget, there were just not enough of them. Last year, within Westfield Ward, estates appeared neglected, and I had to cut back hedges myself that had grown across gateways to help disabled residents to get out of their flats. I note that you've responded to the comments the Liberal Democrat councillors made on behalf of residents on this and grass cutting, but I hope you will do more to respond to the residents to the issues that we've raised on their behalf. There are some areas of work that need clarity. Tenants with garden assistance have not yet had letters about what they can expect this year. However, speaking to residents in the ward, it seems that actions have started, which is some sort of reassurance, but I hope that the letters that have been sent out in previous years can be sent out. Wildflower areas don't happen by accident, and there's quite a lot of detail in this report. The considerable amount of space that has been allocated within the city centre of this activity omits the detail of ongoing maintenance and where the crews to keep this going will come from and whether it will result from people being pulled from other parts of the city. Meanwhile, there are locations where volunteers from within Westfield Ward are actively working to maintain wildflower areas, which don't get a mention in the report. Foxwood Park being one of them, and despite asking for a while, an outline plan for Westfield Fen would be immensely helpful to utilise volunteers. I was pleased to work with officers on the wildflower planting on the widening of the Wetherby Road roundabout, but in terms of ongoing maintenance, this hasn't really been addressed. I spent a lot of time working with officers from different departments to establish a definitive map of the cutting on Bachelor Hill Field to deal with wildflowers there. However, the first cut this year, the map wasn't passed on and the whole area has been done. In the parallel side, with there being such limited amount of recreation space within Westfield Ward for informal kickabout by children, it's vital that there is very regular cutting of some areas to keep them safe. But we need to know what's happening to help positive outdoor activities for young children, and therefore maps of what will happen where is vital so that the public and staff will understand. The creation of neighbourhood caretakers means taking resources from other parts of the public realm budget, which, given my initial comment, makes me very concerned for the future. Residents are asking, what am I paying my council tax for? You mentioned the report about engaging with volunteers. There are many volunteers, pick litter, I'm one of them, but the basis of what the council does as a baseline, people are wondering what's going on. And the green bin tax did impact on the volunteer leaf clearance. There are many tenants who maintain communal garden areas, but they feel that they are not being supported. Therefore, I hope you will address this going forward because it was covered in our budget amendment.
Thank you for your comments, and I'll pick up on them, I hope, or they'll be addressed later on in the meeting. So next, could I welcome Ian Holt and give a special welcome to Ian in his first executive decision-making sessions as in his new position as Head of Environmental Services. As an aside, I want to pass on thanks to Ben Grabham, who's moved on to Darlington and who oversaw a lot of the work that's already in this report. We greatly appreciated the work he did here in York, and we wish him all the best in his promotion. But Ian and James Gilchrist, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So there's obviously a 29-page report here, so I'm going to assume you've read it, and I'll just pick out some highlights, really. I think as a starting point, obviously, the council plan sets out how we want to achieve and create a more affordable, more sustainable, more accessible city. And then that links strongly to how we enhance biodiversity, increase pollinators, the fact we've got a pollinator strategy, all sort of ties together in what we're trying to achieve. And this picks up from a report that you received in February last year, where we said we would pilot some things to try and improve biodiversity and the pollinator situation in the city. and it updates on those and sets out some new things. A lot of this isn't new. I think it was 25, 30 years ago that Sheffield talked about green deserts and the fact that actually green areas weren't necessarily good for biodiversity and pollinators, and that we needed to manage those spaces differently. So York is not at the front end of this. It is doing what every other city is doing. The report also talks about the cleansing of the city centre, the way we'll approach weed control, verge management and sustainable planting. It also responds to 2 petitions that the council has received, and you've heard from public speakers about some of those issues. I think without going into too much detail, there obviously is further work around the Parks Investment Fund, and that can pick up the...
Can I just ask, is the volume all right with the cutter outside? Can everybody hear with the lawnmower outside? No. Thanks, thank you.
So, lost my flow now. So just to pick up some of the comments that have been made by public speakers, obviously the council works with a range of groups in terms of delivering changes to the city. So you've heard about the work on the bar walls and the work with Friends of groups and the fact that we can improve the way that operates. And we can certainly look at Hull Road Park in terms of the options for the Parks Investment Fund report that will be coming forward in the not too distant future. I think just to add some clarity, the holding of vacancies was something that was done as an immediate budget pressure, but is not something that is current at the moment. So either all those posts are filled with direct employees, or sometimes as a short-term gap, we will use agency staff while we do the permanent recruitment. But those posts are all filled at the moment.
Yeah, we've just filled the last few remaining spots and offers, etc. The recruitment process is just finalising now.
Okay. But we were using an agency before that. So I think just to clarify that point.
Can I just clarify, because I think there's been a misunderstanding, because this was raised at full council as well, and just the vacancies are being advertised, but there were staff in post on a temporary basis meanwhile, so they weren't actually vacant posts in the sense that most of us would understand.
Yeah, so because we use agency staff for those. So as I say, just to sort of wrap up then and go back to the decisions, which I think is the important bit. As I've alluded to, changing the way we manage the city, because changing the way it looks and the way we need to learn in the way that changes. But those 2 petitions we've presented to you, and those can be considered. The weed treatment programme, as I said, going forward, will continue with the 2 sprays, and that is positive in terms of the council plan and the pollinator strategy in terms of reducing the amount of glyphosate we use. The changes to verge management that we've have talked about, and as I say, we'll learn and pick up new ways of doing that. And that the enhanced amount of sustainable and pollinator friendly planting and moving away from bedding plants. So that's happened and will continue to happen as a positive way forward, that we use more sustainable planting going forward.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything, Ian?
No, not at this stage.
In that case, sorry, hot off running up the stairs. I wondered, we've also got Dave Mee, who's oversees parks and has had a lot of involvement, particularly with the Friends of Hull Road Park. I wondered if you wanted to comment on any aspects of the public speakers or the report.
There we go. There's the trouble with the report this size is you can't put everything in it. So I accept there's some omissions. And I'm particularly welcome feedback from councillors and the public on where we've got omissions, and we will continue to add information onto our database. These things are always out of date as soon as you publish them, so we've got more to go on. The Friends of Hull Road Park are welcome development, as said in the report. There's clearly differences of opinion of how certain parts of the park and certain aspects of the back work and look. We are committed to working with the Friends. I'm committed to having the engineer's report, which is referred to in one of the submissions. It will never be what it was, though. I think we'll have to work with that. But there's a challenge to me is what will it look like, and I will work with the Friends and other technical experts into producing that vision. There's the exciting bit for me is has been referred to as this new fund you've created for investment into parks. That will open up a lot of possibilities and to produce more change, which is very welcome. And the discussions we have with the Friends of Hall Row are very similar to discussions we've had in the past with many other friends groups. And eventually you work out some kind of common ground and improve places. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just on the, but thank you, Mr. Morton, for raising the written submission, which I should also bring the public's attention to, which is from David Alexander, which will be included in the pack, which deals specifically with the Beck. I know you say Hull Road Park will never be what it was. That could sound negative. Now, my understanding is what we mean by that is it won't look like a 1970s or a Victorian park, very carefully trimmed, maybe with a bandstand. I can't remember, not necessarily bandstand, but the old fashioned. But it doesn't mean it's in many people's eyes it's an improvement. It could change with the time.
All of our sites don't look like they did when they were built. They don't look like they did when they were 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Things have changed. Fashions change. I cut my teeth on the restoration of Rowntree Park in 2000, and that was never actually built as originally designed. So as fashions, as the environmental agenda has risen, then all of our parks are reflecting that change in how the landscape is used, and also different pastimes. And unfortunately, and I think it's sad in some respects. We've had a massive decline in bowling in our parks. That particular attraction of that sport in York itself is reducing greatly. The flip side is in Glen Gardens, that created a kickabout space that didn't exist for the local community. So one of the bowling greens is now prime. That share of Heworth had very little kickabout informal open space. And then in Clarence Gardens, where we had a bit more space to change and play about with, experiment with, we've created the wildlife areas, the pollinator zones in the old bowling greens. It's how you take the public with you on those journeys is the challenge.
Absolutely. And I think that's very much what I would say is that it's a two-way conversation that we need both, and it takes time and you iron it out. But I also want to highlight there are various sections in this report about our ambitions for improving and increasing the number of green flag parks in the city. And one of the petitions was what dealt with the parks, but I want to point out that we came into this administration in 2023 with an stated ambition that we would improve the parks. The first 18 months we were dealing with stabilising finances, but we are now in a position to have announced this park investment fund. But that was a long-standing ambition, and I urge people to talk to us because of this and have this conversation rather than assuming that nothing's happening or that we don't all want the same thing, because broadly speaking, although we may disagree on some details, we do all want the same thing. We all want our city to look fantastic, to be clean, green, healthy for all and accessible to all. But there's other fantastic work that's been going on in terms of changing attitudes, particularly in Rowntree Park as a leader for making space for girls and different types of activities to get more young girls into open spaces and green spaces, which traditionally has dropped off as they hit teenage years. And I really welcome that it's not traditional. Bowling has its role, and it's really well supported at West Bank Park in my ward, and does fantastically, and people come from all over the region to play there. But we want everybody to use our parks, and so looking inventively at the parks and all the different spaces of it so that it's suitable for the old, the young, every gender. That's really what we're aiming for. So the conversation continues, but I wanted to congratulate you on all that you've done and getting it back here, and that Rowntree Park is back in the running for green flag status this year. It only wasn't last year because the flooding set back planting so badly with our very wet spring. And that the only reason why that Rawcliffe isn't yet back in the running is because we haven't yet had the end of the Environment Agency works on the flood defences there, but it will be. And we hope others with this park investment fund. Thank you. James.
Just one point that I didn't pick up, Councillor Waller made, the point about maps of where we maintain. So it is a valid point. It's something that I think you picked up when you became the executive member. So we have been doing a project, as you know, over the last 18 months to collect that information and put it onto the GIS mapping system. So that is an ongoing project. It is, as David alluded to, a piece of work to keep it up to date and improve that information, but that is a live project we, as you know, we have on the books.
Thank you. And can I just follow up on a couple of other comments from the public speakers? So Mr. Mortimer raised Hull Road Verge in the centre, and I want to also express thanks because this was a trial. A lot of these things were trials, and the very definition of a trial is you're willing to try something new with the best intentions, and you wait and see. And I'll talk about petitions later, but we all have to be a bit tolerant of this to change and experiment and to accept that some trials will fail. But my understanding is that, one, I wanted to express thanks to Natural England because we as a council don't own the equipment necessary to cut long grass at the end of the season and remove. And so with great partnership working, Natural England loaned equipment, and with great, I think, ingenuity, the Public Realm Department sort of welcomed that and took it on and made that happen. But I think there were areas, particularly in the central reservation, which proved very difficult to cut properly because of the trees and locations. And my understanding was that possibly is not going forward as a case, to leave that long this year. Is that right, Ian?
Yeah, thank you. That's right. The Hull Road, the Verge, Central Reservation, so it was difficult in terms of access and navigating trees and other obstacles, etc. So yeah, we're going to look at how we maintain that going forward this year and the cutting regime.
Thank you. And the same applies to all trials elsewhere in the city. The feedback is important, but it would be great if the feedback could be in a partnership spirit, which the speakers today were very much so. But I'd welcome that from all quarters. And I note your comments, Mr. Mortimer, on larger litter bins. I think Public Realm team have been wanting to put larger litter bins in many places. Certainly, Ben Grabham previously would like to expand that, and that's a conversation that's ongoing. But when there's resident willingness for this as well, that really helps, because in some quarters they don't want larger bins because they think they look unsightly. Although we haven't had a single complaint, I don't think, about any of these. So this is a good development because it helps keep our streets clean. I also welcome, Mr. Hill, your contributions, and as part of that, I want to highlight the amazing work that our volunteers do. At the last count in March of this year, we had nearly 2,000 volunteers registered just with the council: gardeners, litter pickers, leaf clearers, snow wardens, you name it. Our residents are out there doing it, and really the difference they make to our city can't be understated. They help us all keep the place looking fantastic, and I wanted to really highlight that. And those are all the only people who are registered with the council. I would estimate there were many, many more who just do this as a matter of course. If they see a piece of litter on the street, they don't need permission, they just pick it up and they put it in a bin. If they see a weed in the wrong place, if they think it's a weed, there's a difference of opinion over that sometimes, but they just pull it up and put it in the bin. And I think I'd like to say I really welcome petitions because it shows engagement, it shows that people care. There's a really valid place for them in our society. But I would ask that there's also a basic amount of fact-finding that goes on beforehand, and also a question mark. Not only do I raise my voice to say, what about this, but that I actually volunteer to be part of the solution. I came back off holiday last summer to one of the petitions about the state of our bar walls, and mention of weeds. I walked around the back. There were a couple of weeds growing outside the Network Rail monument. In the time it took for someone to put their finger on the keyboard, I just pulled them up. This isn't me saying I'm a fantastic person. It's saying no one needs permission to do the right thing, and just take action if you see something that you want to clear up. And it's not always someone else's responsibility. We need both. And as well as thanking all the volunteers and residents associations who help, I also want to pay tribute to our Public Realm and waste teams who do such a fantastic job day in, day out. We're a really busy city, and people sometimes write to me and say, if they've seen something that looks unsightly, and it does, with 9 million visitors a year, bins will be overflowing on a hot day. Sometimes it doesn't look as good as we would like it to, but that doesn't mean there isn't a schedule in place, and those bins will be collected. And if they haven't been collected, it's because of a good reason. It's not because someone doesn't care or the system isn't in place. Our teams are stretched. We aren't carrying vacancies, but they are stretched, as all local authorities are. But some of the pictures that I see on a daily basis that our teams and that the York Bid cleansing teams do and clear up before any of us have had breakfast are so revolting, I can't tell you. And they do it every day. And I just want to pay tribute to that they don't give up, and they put up with some of the complaints They also get some good comments, I'm glad to say, but they do huge good work and they are the unsung heroes of our city. I also want to celebrate this report because it shows what great steps we're taking to reducing glyphosate, which is a hot topic across all of England. It's a knotty problem, which I really thought I could come in and solve, but it's difficult because we need to maintain that fine balance between accessibility on our pavements and our streets and protecting our infrastructure, because long-term repairing road surfaces and pavement services is incredibly costly, and our council budgets can't afford to let that decrease. But we've reduced the use of glyphosate across the city, and we've also increased the number of areas where people have opted out. And again, this is part of the how can I be part of the solution? We need to have a set regime, which means we can walk in our streets clearly, but we have lots of areas where volunteers and residents have got together and said, we don't want glyphosate on our streets. We will do the weeding ourselves and we will opt out of the regime. And if anyone watching or listening wants to be part of that, if you contact your ward councillor, you contact your ward community officer, so long as there's consent, because along the street it is a chore, I can tell you, because our area in Holgate has opted out, and those weeds grow really fast, and it gives you a really good understanding of how difficult it is as a public realm team to keep them under control without using chemicals. So I think it's a good experience in trying to manage things in any event, but please do that, get involved. None of us want to increase the amount of toxic overload on our environment, and York is making great strides. We continue to work in conjunction with the Pesticide Action Network. Our officers are very willing to trial alternatives, and as the report states, we're getting a new road sweeper, mechanical road sweeper, which will increase the amount of work we can do to prevent weed growth in the first place by removing the detritus and the leaf mold, which is a rich ground for them to grow in. So I really wanted to celebrate that because we're taking great steps in another way for our environment and for our cleanliness. I'm really pleased about the cutting regime trials because we are being sensitive and learning, but we are also really improving biodiversity. And I want to draw attention to a study that was done on behalf of the Ministry of Justice, looking across its sites, which showed that just by not cutting grass, you could improve biodiversity by up to something like 75%, because it increases the amount of environment that's suitable for insects, which, as we know, are the base of all our food chains upon which all our environment rests. I'm not suggesting we just don't cut the grass. Councillor Waller is absolutely right. All our ward councillors are very good at highlighting areas which need cutting and need amenity treatment, and those which don't and which could be set aside. That's a difficult thing to manage, and the mapping is ongoing, as our officers have said. But having this jigsaw of yes, you cut, no, you don't, yes, you cut, is quite hard for the cutters on the ground to do on a day-to-day basis. But we're getting there, and we're making great strides on that. And some of the observations that have been made at the sites where we left longer grass and cut and removed, which helps the biodiversity continue, showed up to 80 different species on the A19 and outside Tesco at Askham Bar. We had bee orchids, we had various types of orchids, and we had a larger range of insects and butterfly and moth observation than you would ever see on a close-cut grass verge. And this is really welcome. We need to reverse the decline in our environment. And these actions are just in 12 months showing great improvement. Similarly, on the bar walls, I did want to address particularly the petition on the bar walls. I understand why it came about, in that site by Station Rise is a very prominent position. It's a place we all look to, and it's the Instagram shop for the city. And at the beginning of last year, before signs were put out, people may well have wondered what was happening because it just looked like it had been neglected. But I come back to my point about asking questions before you get upset and angry and perhaps cause unnecessary upset and anger by stirring other people up. There was a project in line. We are copying the Tower of London, which is a respectable, iconic site, who've made it work. There's always the possibility it might not work. Nature does its own thing. But the ambition and the plan is that we will have a great array of wildflowers out there at the front, and we're supported by York Cares, by St Nick's, by donations from the Grand Hotel. We have support from city partners. So before writing the petition, it could have been a simple conversation with myself, with your ward councillor, with any council officer, just to say what was the plan, what's happening here, try and understand it a bit better. That doesn't mean you don't want to object. Some people will always be wedded to the old style bedding plants. That's their prerogative, and we want to hear from everybody. But I think I'd like to ask that a bit of understanding is and a bit of fact finding is done first, because I think that might have assuaged some of the concerns people had. And again, I'd say let's wait and see. The proof will be in the pudding, and we need to assess it at the end of this season to see how we can take it forwards, and we will learn from that. I say that in case there's another petition that's someone wanting to raise saying it doesn't look great yet. It may not yet, but let's give it the full season and wait and see, and we'll be a bit tolerant of what we're trying to achieve here. I think that's it. I think this is a fantastic report. I'm really pleased with all the work that's going on, and I'm really grateful for the sensitivity with which officers try and respond to the different tastes and preferences of our residents, but also the ambition we have to reduce chemicals in our environment, to improve biodiversity, to keep our city looking great, looking green. And I really welcome all the work that's happening there. So I'm really happy to approve the report as per paragraph 17, 1 to 5. And thank everybody for attending today. I'd also like the conversations to continue. So Councillor Waller, Mr. Mortimer, Mr. Hill, I hope we carry on this conversation outside of here. Thank you very much, everybody. I don't have any urgent business. Does anybody else? Any questions from officers or any follow-ups? Thank you very much, everybody.